activism, whatever it is that we're doing here. She seems to be on the front lines of every worthy cause, and that's why she's here tonight. And we had her last June at the White Eagle Hall. Oh, yeah, somebody else joining us.
That's Rob Anderson from Sioux.
Fantastic.
Yeah, great guy. I hope to get down here.
Well, I don't know what Kari's going to say, so I'm just going to let her take it away. And yeah.
So Mike lives dangerously if he doesn't know what I'm gonna say, and he invites me and gives me an audience here. We're all moving to Columbia, you guys know. Did you not know that was on the agenda? So number one, thank you for coming tonight. I have quite a bit of news. Most of it is very exciting. I know that's a change of things from, we're looking at what is facing Canada and the challenges we have, and I think everybody's here because we're concerned about where we're going as a nation. So one of the things that's been kind of exciting about COVID, is that there's been this democratic awakening. Suddenly people are getting involved and engaged, trying to find solutions. There's been a lot of grumbling and a lot of, pissed off Canadians. And Canadians are finally learning that we as the regular folk might be nice Canadians, but there's a lot of really nasty ones out there too, right? And I think that is what has contributed to some of the problem in Canada, is that we've bought the lie that we're nice, compliant, quiet, peacemakers. How nice, to brainwash your whole citizenry with that psychology and then try to do the incredible things, the transformation of what's transpiring in this nation right now. So as Mike said, I am a bit of an activist. I actually think what makes me good at what I do is I detest politics, and I think I share that cynicism. Yeah, thank you. And I think I share that cynicism with a lot of Canadians, obviously, because that's why we only get typically, 50% voter turnout. There's people that don't have much hope in our political system. I'm probably one of those people, but I do vote every year. I go to the polls and I spoil my ballot, okay? Because I will not hold my nose and vote for politicians that I know are going to destroy this nation. Politicians that have the ability to make a difference, but who just because they want their pensions and they want to go along to get along, don't stand up to their political leaders and have their voices heard. Politicians who don't represent their constituents, instead just go up and represent Ottawa or the Victoria here. So having said all that, we're at this point in the history of Canada, though, where if we don't do something, we're going to lose this nation. We're going to lose what we have, the freedom. We've already lost the freedoms. Everybody says, we live in a free and democratic society. Okay, that game's over. We know that doesn't exist now. So right now we're at a place where politically right and left don't matter. Conservative, liberal, NDP doesn't matter. There's only two camps for this election. Either you're part of keeping Canada sovereign, independent, free, and building a prosperous, healthy future for our children and our grandchildren, or you're in the camp that's dismantling this nation. You're a deconstructionist, right? That's what we're looking at for this election. So watching what has transpired through the COVID session and leading up to it, about 2.5 years ago, actually before COVID hit, I could sense that we needed to do something big in Canada. And I've been able to pull off a number of things, as Mike says. When I put my mind to it, I like to be effective. I like to be efficient. I don't like to waste time or resource. I'm kind of get it done, people. We don't play politics. I would say I don't negotiate. I don't compromise. If we're on a mission, that's what we're going to do. So over the years, we've in and out of political movements when we saw fit. Here in BC, back in 1997, we had a government that was intruding, overstepping its right into issues involving the citizenry family. We saw expenses being gone to fast ferries and things that were not in the interest of the province. And you know, the mood of this province was to give the politicians a bit of political spanking. And so I went on a tour. We had town hall meetings across the province. We had a great one here in Victoria that turned into a riot. And that's kind of what happens when I speak at some of these events. So, yeah, no, it's not boring, right? But everywhere we went, sports arenas in Prince George, 2,000-3,000 people, Bevan Park Arena in Nanaimo filled to capacity. People of BC were hungry to hear a message that said we could bring about the change necessary. So we gathered people, we gathered momentum. We gave people a political playground where their voice mattered. The issues we talked about were the ones that were of concern to them. We as the people set the narrative. We didn't let the politicians do it. And come that election in 2001, I knew we would win. We had, at that point, the provincial Liberals were very sort of a good place to drop people in because they wanted smaller government, less intrusion, accountability, and under Gordon Campbell, we had that. So on that election day, we didn't win. We literally obliterated the NDP. They went from a majority party, in the 75 seats in the legislature back then, down to just 2 seats. They did not even qualify. They didn't even qualify as a political party anymore.
That was a happy day.
That was a good day, you know, like I was like, and you know what, I was the most amazed person. I thought, whoa, right? Like, you know, but that's what happened when people came together. And I learned a couple of very important lessons. Number one, we are by design very busy people. You know, government requires us to work, pay our taxes. Well, I shouldn't say requires us to work. We're going down to this, you know, a living wage everybody can now do, but we'll talk about that later. And you know, they create enough chaos for our children and our culture and our society, so we're diverted. Our energy, our political energy isn't available to us. So our energy goes into keeping roof over our head, to feeding our family, to keeping our kids on the straight and narrow, keeping our businesses alive. And then we don't have anything left over, especially when they're talking issues that don't really, we think, affect us. Yet our vote in a democratic society is our tool for deciding who is going to govern over us. Every law that is made that restricts our life or enhances our life or destroys our life is made in the legislature. Ironically, 20 years ago, I warned people about the Emergency Program Act. And it was while we were looking at issues involving the apprehension of children, because there was an overwhelming amount of kids being apprehended at that point in time. And of course, the more kids in the system, the more government workers. It's an industry. It's a self-perpetuating industry. And there's much of that going on right now, whether it's on the green movement or all the other nonsense that's happening. There's just, you know, let's make more bureaucracy, more. And in that case, there were many kids being apprehended that unwarrantedly. There was just, and I looked at the laws involving child protection, and it was very concerning. It was godlike autonomy without any accountability. They could scoop kids if you were emotionally abusing a child. Well, at that point, I think I had 4 teenagers. It was my duty to emotionally abuse my children, you know. and again, there was no definition of what constitutes emotional abuse. So, you know, in my emotional abuse, it was for their benefit, but somebody may disagree with that, right?
Heaven forbid you tell them no.
Oh, well, I know. That was terribly abusive to them. So we looked at this, and I think in that course I was looking at these other laws going, well, what else is there we need to be worried about? And of course I came across the Emergency Program Act. Again, no clear definition of what constitutes an emergency, yet the government gave itself all this ability to shut down, lock down, stop our society. Very concerning. So as we moved, we looked at these things, and part of what we did back in 2001 is we gave people the right to use that vote in a collective, meaningful way. Right now, one voice, 100 voices, 1,000 voices. The government's just watching everybody at all these rallies. You know, there they go, wasting their time and energy again. Well, hopefully they'll emotionally burn out, right? Well, no, those rallies are important. They bring people together and they send a message to the government, we're not going away. But we have to be more strategic than that. We have to harness that power. We have to harness those people that are concerned about the future of our nation and bring people together. So 2.5 years ago, I could sense something was coming down. Never in my wildest imaginings could I come up with the scheme that has played out. So we organized a campaign called 300K.ca. So 300,000 Canadians coming across Canada, united on the principles of democracy, meaning freedom, liberty, respect and protect, because right now this identity politic game that the government plays with us, pitting everybody against everybody, has got to end. Government accountability, and most importantly in this day and age, judicial accountability, because all these court cases with the courts the way they are, and there was just a decision that came down in Ontario involving the protests that were being held outside, and we had Mr. Baber say these are too restrictive, we're outside, transmission rates are, just non-existent. The court refused to give him standing for the public interest group he was representing, and wouldn't even entertain the charter rights argument again. So they've been shut down. I haven't had a chance to read the decision yet, so he may have been assigned costs as well, but they're looking to appeal that decision. But until we bring judicial accountability to our courts, the politics will continue on. So we have a lot of work to do, and it's no surprise, most of us have been sleeping for the last 20 years, right? Yeah. And so here we are. So what do we do? So 300K, sorry, I'm gonna just need a little bit of this. 300K, I just said to myself, okay, we need an organization to do this. Ironically, COVID has given us the most important tool going. It's actually pissed people off. Now, for Canadians to get royally and righteously angry is a good thing, and I give everybody full liberty. And I've been telling people, stop being good Canadians, these compliant, polite, be great Canadians and use your voices and be authoritative and don't put up with the nonsense anymore. So we decided to launch on Canada Day officially the 300K campaign. Much better news came later. So I was speaking in Kelowna, talking as I am to you today, and the crowd just was lined up. Everybody was excited. We're not just complaining anymore. We have a plan. And I told people, if you want to change the Emergency Program Act, then get a government in here in BC that can change it, right? Be part of a system that creates that change. And there's tools to do that. I'll come back to that. So we were overwhelmed with support there, and I came home from that weekend away. We had a number of meetings with a lot of people that were doing things, and I thought, okay, we need an organization now to undergird what we're going to do here, because it was probably going to be bigger than what I had anticipated 2.5 years earlier, right? Because this is across Canada, people are upset. So I was asked to speak in Victoria with Joella and Tyler, and by then I had been working on the organization name, and I don't know if anybody here has ever tried to incorporate an organization in Canada. You have to go through name searches, then you have to get approval, and it can't be anything like anybody else's, and then you have to send that off, and then that gets approved, and then you have to do your incorporation. But you also have to make sure all your domains are available as well, right? So you have, because now that's how we do business online, right? So you have to make sure you can get the domain and social media. So I literally 2:00 in the morning, hunkered down for a whole nighter on this thing, because I thought, coming up with a name, I've done this enough to know you have to play with words and all the rest of it. The first name I pumped in to incorporate for this organization, the Canadian Voters Association, because what better name is there, right? Available. Nobody in the history of Canada has ever organized under the Canadian Voters Association. Okay, and then I thought,
that's too good to be true.
I did. They're never going to let me do this, right? So I quietly, without making any noise before any of this, I sent off the approval. 2 days later, I got the approval back. Then I thought, okay, they're going to stop us at the incorporation phase, but it just flew through. So we are now a federally incorporated nonprofit organization called the Canadian Voters Association, which gives us an amazing platform to do what we need to do. So So then I thought, okay, when we were in Kelowna, I met with some very strategically, politically involved people there who have past histories. I'm not going to drop names, but people whose opinions I respect. And I explained what I was doing with 300K. So this is before the Canadian Voters Association. And this individual said that, Kari, and this person pretty cynical because he's been burned quite a bit in the political world. So he's coming from a point of cynicism and bitterness, which you know you're going to get the basic truth at that point, right?
It's a good place to come from.
It is, at least for me, right? And I really thought he's just going to be so cynical. He just said nothing's going to work. Instead, he said, if anything's going to work, it has to be this. This might work. And so that was an interesting evening. The next morning, I received more information from him. And he said, Kari, if you do this, because we were originally only looking at provincial and federal politics to monitor and see what was going on. He said the next morning I got a message from him. He said, Kari, if you do this, you've got to deal with the municipal, because municipal, all this cesspool, this stuff just starts pouring in, whether it's the school boards, the city councils, those kinds of things. So I was feeling overwhelmed with just the federal and provincial, but then to have to go to the municipal as well, it really wasn't exciting for me, but that's okay. If we're going to do this, we go big or go home, right, at this point. So in keeping with that conversation, after I got the Canadian Voters Association, I thought, okay, the only way we can really monitor on a provincial and municipal level is to have provincial associations. So I pulled up my little name search tool again. BC Voters Association, Alberta Voters Association, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec. Every one of them was available. So every province now has a voters association in it, which is just amazing. Okay, so now we have the structure. Will we get the people? And I can tell you, after the speaking engagements in Kelowna, Victoria, and everywhere we've been now in, God bless Zoom. I love Zoom. And thanks COVID that you taught everybody how to Zoom, right? Because before we Zoomed, you had to teach everybody on how to do it. Now everybody's pretty expert at it, right? So we have been able to reach literally tens of thousands of Canadians now as a result of what we've done. And I can tell you, as I speak, when I left the last website check, there are over 500 people signing up every day. And every 2.5 days, that number doubles. So we went from 120, then to 300 to 500, and it's just exploding across Canada. You look at because we get notifications, it's just all, from all parts of Canada. So this is pretty exciting about what is transpiring. I think we're up 160, 170,000 people already.
Excellent.
And it's just building. So people are hungry, they're looking for solutions. So what are we going to do with this tool that we all have access to now? Well, we're going to rate all the political parties, and everybody's going to get a voter guide, and they're going to find out, and we're sticking just to what our mandate is: freedom, liberty, sovereignty, all the issues the majority of Canadians can agree on, right? And if we have that as the underlying fabric of our nation, the rest kind of take cares of itself, okay? So we are now establishing volunteer groups, and we're helping people. So if there's candidates that show up that said, Kari, this is what I stand for, and I belong to a party where I'm going to have a voice, they're going to get access to the volunteers in those areas. We're going to host all candidates meetings as the BC Voters Association or the Canadian Voters Association, so people will know who is for their freedom and who's going to lock them down, who's going to allow them to have personal autonomy, or who's going to force injections and coercive tactics to make sure people are part of an experiment that they don't want to be part of. People have a right to know. This is the only vehicle that will allow them to understand what is transpiring and give them the tools to do it. We are writing letters to the CEO of WestJet, because our motto at 300K is voice, vote, and value. So you have your voice, your vote, and your value as a consumer. People, do not underestimate what that value is. So if WestJet wants to force its pilots to be injected against their will, we will initiate a boycott. Simple. You want to inject your bank employees or fire them, then we don't want to do business with you. We will initiate a boycott. There will be organized pushback of numbers that will actually speak to these issues. There's power in numbers. But we can't do this. So this is where you come in, because this organization belongs to all freedom-loving people, okay? Everybody needs to reach out to their friends. You need to call your cousins in Ontario, because we know how here in the West on a federal election, we don't really have that much say, right? But we need to organize, and we need to get people all working together for this one event. You know, when the election was called, I said, great, we have 5 weeks, we can save Canada, right? In 5 weeks, we can solve so many of these problems, right? Sure, it's optimistic, but you know what? If everybody gets together, the Canadian grapevine, don't talk to me about the mainstream media because I have no use for it. It's the people reaching out to their friends, their family, and saying, let's get this done. There is no right, there is no left, there is no liberal, there is no conservative. It's either you're for a free and democratic nation, or you're going to dismantle this nation. Those are the choices. Easy. So people have come together now on these fronts. We are gearing up and ramping up. You can appreciate how busy it is. But we need you to do your part now, right? We've got the tools, the website. Our poor web developer is trying to get all these pages up, but there's too many people signing up. So if you see just a temporary maintenance sign, just know that that's where we've just put a full halt until we get all the stuff up, okay? And hopefully he won't hate me too much after that. But I can tell you, sitting on the front row of what is transpiring, the amount of people that say, yes, I'll volunteer, I'll step up. You know, event coordinators that typically put together the Abbotsford Air Show. What do you need, Kari? You know, it's just been amazing to see Canadians come to the plate, take back our nation, stand strong for our nation, embrace this nation like never before, and ensure that there is a healthy, prosperous country for the future generations. So we have to act quickly on these fronts. You know, there's all kinds of rumors going around right now that they're going to start mandating vaccinations for non-essential services. You know, what are we going to do at that point? Are we really to go out and stand in front and boycott businesses and those kinds of things? We're going to need visibility, people power, right? But at least this way we can organize all under one umbrella, get all the various groups together to be working in concert. So I can say we've been very, very fortunate to have leadership come together. What can we do to help? And there's this spirit of cooperation like I've never seen before right now. So all good news. So I'm going to open the floor for questions because I do have to be out of here by 8:15. Okay. So don't be shy, ask your questions. You know, for those that are like me and pessimistic and don't like politics, well, you know what? We live in a democratic society, you guys. This is a tool we have. If we learn how to use it right, we can change that. We can raise up good leaders. We can make sure that those leaders stay accountable. And one of the things I learned in 2001, after we got what we thought was a good government in, I made a mistake. And that was, I was a single mom of 4 kids. I'd done my job. I left work to raise my kids, and I thought, okay, riding association set up, they know what they're supposed to do. No.
Yeah.
They need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
The good people need to be held up in support, because those halls of power will just strip them of any courage and stand that they take. They will beat them down. So we have to be there to hold them up. So the way we've structured the Canadian Voters Association and all the local Voters Association is to make sure that accountability continues on. It just doesn't end at the election. We're also being ready in advance of any kind of elections that are coming up. So 2022, we have a municipal election here in BC. Let's be ready for it. If Horgan locks us down next week, at least with the vaccine coercive tactics, did you know
with his head.
we can recall him? We can recall him in April. 18 months after the provincial election, we can initiate recall events. We want to change the Infants Act so kids can't be vaccinated against parents' will. We can initiate an initiative event because we have this tool called Recall and Initiative here in BC, but we need to be highly organized because those acts are created for failure, right? They give you time constraints, forming the legal questions, there's a whole bunch of things. Are the petitioners registered voters before they signed the petition? There's all these little things, okay? But we know all those tricks, okay? And it has been done before. Bill Vanderzam and Chris Delaney pulled it off on the HST, right? And they got enough signatures. They had over 6,000 volunteers ready and organized to do things here in BC. We need to have that in advance before we do any of these things, because if we start it, let's finish it and let's get it done. We can force the government to amend the Infants Act so that kids under 18 can't get medical treatment or vaccinations without parental consent. There are these tools. There are these tools, but again, highly organized, have to have your database. I need 50 people in Prince George. Where are they, right? So please sign up. That makes our job easy, okay? Just to be able to initiate these things, we can look at our numbers and go, okay, we can count on X amount of people across the board. Yeah, we can do this. Let's get it done. Recall Horgan, recall Adrian Dix. There you go.
I can't really help.
Or recall both of them, you know?
Hanger
And-
in Centennial Square.
People power, right? And that's what we need. But again, all of this is possible, but only if you guys help us. So that's your job, okay? We're doing yeoman's work, just trying to get this thing up and going and out. You can bring 10, 15, 50 people on board, okay? Invite people. I will do Zoom calls. Put together, 15, 20 people in like this. I will Zoom in, come in, whatever. Give me 15 people who will do something, right? Love it. That's all we need. We need organizers. If you want to be part of the voter association for Victoria, let me know, right?
Yeah.
Let's make that happen now. There are already groups, so we have a saying at the Voters Association, and this was the same thing I did back in 2001. We will help any political party who asks for it. We will take any political party to task who needs it. You work for our principles, you get us, you're our friend. You work against us, we will make sure you never see the political light of day. And
Right.
Full beat down. I think you mean it, every word of it.
you bet I do.
Atta girl.
I got 16 grandkids, don't mess with my kids, right?
Kids.
Yeah.
That's enough. That's all you need.
So, yeah, no, I said, darn kids, if you hadn't had so many kids, I could just go have a nice life and not care, right? But here I am, 16 grandkids, right? Like, so, yeah, well, I'll lend you some. I can do that. So here, we're nonpartisan, but we make no bones about what we expect from our politicians and any politician who wants to be a leader. And I don't even like politicians. Let's elect leaders, not politicians from now on, guys, okay? Those businessmen who have been successful, just tell them they owe us back something. Just 4 years. They already have their pension figured out. Just 4 years, bring the province back on track. So we, again, can do this. But again, it's you people. We will try to give everybody the tools to do this, right? On the website, we'll have, how do you recruit good candidates for the municipal election, right? So there's school trustees that need to be brought in. Mayors. Did I say mayor in Victoria? Mayor in Victoria? Well, I think some of our monuments did that, didn't they?
Yeah.
So again, no more grumbling. Let's just get the feet to the ground and get it done. And you know what? The people on this movement are really good people. It has just been amazing to meet so many determined Canadians who are just happy that there's a solution now, that everybody's come together, that we have a vision, and we're going to get this done. We will succeed. We may not have as big of impact as I was hoping the first time we had to venture into a federal election, because it was called shortly after we got going, but we will impact this election. and we will impact it in a meaningful way. We will serve notice on these parties that no more of these games. Hearing Jagmeet Singh, say, well, if the employees don't get vaccinated, they should be fired. Like, he should be fired, right? Like,
That's ridiculous.
yeah, that is not even being a bad Canadian. That's anti-Canadian, right? That we have no room for that. That thought process, those words should just be illegal in this nation, okay? And we can make those things happen. So if we get the right group of people together, I've already had a provincial party here come to us and help with policies, strengthening things. So we're already having an impact on those fronts. So I am going to open for questions because I tend to but I hope, did I explain the structure okay on what we're doing? The various levels? Okay. Questions?
Wow.
Can you summarize in 10 steps to getting this to succeed?
You calling 50 people, they calling 10, okay? You're a leader because you know what this game is about. You have to give them
I don't
the words.
understand it yet. So I can't sell it until I understand it.
The whole database on 300K.ca gives us the ability to mobilize like-minded people, right? So the only parties that are going to get on the voter card, so we're going to try to put voter cards out for the major cities and every province. We'll do every province for sure. How far down we get, I don't know, but people will be able to see which political party actually will work to entrench your rights in a free and democratic society. Okay, so I want to see their policies and how they're going to do it, how they are going to be accountable. Are they open? Because judicial accountability has never been on the radar of any political party. So we've already drafted a help guide for them. So what we see it as, the Constitution of Canada allows for the creation by Parliament, Parliament has the power to do this, of a court for the better administration of justice. We know right now the courts are not working properly. And the reason for that is that they're appointed politically. People have no say in who is sitting in judgment over them. And they play politics. They're creating law instead of interpreting law. And all, there's overstep and overreach on a lot of fronts. So, number one, the ability to sue a judge has to happen, okay? And that has to be a very high threshold. I don't think we should go willy-nilly suing judges, right? The threshold has to be very high. Gross negligence, malfeasance, those things. But better yet, we need a parliamentary court, right? So a court made up of our elected officials, people who can, in those special cases when it's clear that the Supreme Court of Canada has gone off the rails, which they do, will say, no, that's not appropriate. We are going to take a second look at this. They're going to come up with a recommendation, whether the whole House has to vote on it or not. Those details we haven't worked out all the way yet. But that will put a governing body, an overseer over, who's watching the watchers, right? There's a great Latin phrase that says, who's watching the watchers? Currently, the only one watching judges is the Canadian Judicial Council, which is made up of all the judges. So,
They're all corrected by.
So we have to fix those things, right? And, I'm a realist. Systems of man, you're always going to have a problem. That's just reality. But you know what? We can straighten up the deck and we can be hungry for solutions when we identify problems. That's what we have to do. So putting those checks and balances in. We know governing bodies who govern themselves just doesn't work, right? So we have to change that. So all of these kinds of things, we have a plan far and exceeding just what's going on the elections as well, because those are the things that will make Canada healthy. But you're going to know which political parties are going to be willing to make that happen, right? Who's going to limit government intrusion into your lives? Who is going to protect children? Who's going to do those things? Who's going to bring harmony and unity back to our nation? Stop playing the politics of, identity. And it's just social justice warrior manufacturers in all of our schools now. We have a lot of work to do on a number of fronts, but you will recognize that. So if we have a party that's, all for lockdowns or for coercive injections, they're going to get demerit points. They're going to be no, it's not all of them. They're going to be way down on this level, right? So it'll be an interesting election, but we're trying our best to make sure everybody has the information, the tools that they will need to bring everybody. Somebody said, "Oh, Kari, what about a split vote?" There will not be a split vote. Old style politicians, I was meeting with a couple of the strategists out of the Conservative Party. Kari, they're just going to have to hold their nose and vote for Conservative one more time. And I said, they're out of there. You know, all the people in that party have given you 5 and 6, times in your leadership to do something, and all you do is smack them around again, right? Like, they're so out of touch with what's happening. And this is what's exciting. The people are on the move, and politicians don't get that. They don't know how to measure that. They don't know how to put it on a poll. And it's just people power right now, and it's pretty interesting to be watching what's happening. So there will be no split vote. Either you're for building a healthy, prosperous Canada or dismantling it. If you're engaging in coercive tactics to get people to inject themselves, you are not building a healthy, prosperous, free nation. You are part of dismantling the very fabric of our democracy. So easy.
Yep. So what does an ideal association look like for a city like Victoria? What do you see that look like functioning?
Number one, putting up people that are good candidates, strong voices who will not compromise on things, right?
School board, municipal,
right,
federal, provincial.
Right. So for the Victoria Voters Association, you'd be really interested in municipal. So October 2022 is the municipal election. So your school board, your mayor, your council. I'm not sure if you have parks boards here, but whatever else comes in under the municipal election. And you guys should be right now identifying people who you want in as mayor, who you want in as school board, because October 2022 will be here in a blink of the eye, just like that. And we're always playing catch up. Everybody goes, "Oh, it's municipal election time," 2 days before and the date is fixed. We know when that is, right?
Nobody's been vetted, and it's just a gong show.
Right, and so we need to be working on that. So I would like a group of people can identify these people, Yes, thank you. All right. Give Denise your number. But you're going to Ottawa, aren't you?
Whatever. I'll be in Ottawa.
We'll clone
you. Believe me.
Good man.
Victoria's my city.
Good man.
My city. We're not like these Bolsheviks run the show.
Well, and that's exactly what we're in, right? I mean, if people could know history, right? Yeah. So that's what we need. And so, like I said, technology allows us to keep together and do these meetings and go, "Okay, Victoria, how's things going in your neck of the woods?" I had a guy from Saskatchewan call me. He says, "Kari, I'll do Saskatchewan Voters Association." He said, "If you make our government bring in recall and initiative like you guys have." I said, "Deal." Right? Just bring me 4 other people just to sit on that provincial board. And then, for the bigger communities, get the local associations. So, again, just keeping those people together. Here's the issue, guys. This is what we want to see happen, right? And again, keeping it simple on the things that we all agree on as far as freedom, liberty, uniting Canada, less government intrusion, accountability. I mean, the money that Trudeau is spending is just like... Yeah, I need another 16 grandkids to help with the debt. I'll let my kids know. All right, you guys, you did this to me. Let's be serious about this, right? Any other questions?
Well, I've been up to a few little things. I've been phoning businesses and finding out whether or not they're making their employees be vaccinated and what it is that they're up to. And when they're rude to me or telling me, who are you? I'm saying to them, I have the right to know these things, particularly with banks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, I'll give you a better answer. I'm a member of the BC Voters Association, and they've asked me to do this, to canvass the businesses so that I can report to the BC Voters Association and the Canadian Voters Association what your business is doing. Because they are going to publish this.
Okay, this is what I've been up to.
Okay, so I hereby anoint you. Yeah.
Okay, okay. The Great Canadian Superstore is doing the best though, so far from what I have. That's the right one that I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, she saves me sometimes because I get the stores confused because it's a big thing that I've got going on here. Anyway, They're not making their employees be vaccinated. They're not even asking any of that information. And I phoned there twice because
Yeah.
somebody wouldn't believe me, and then I had them on speaker saying, and they said, no, we don't even ask any of those questions when you're applying for the job. It's none of our business. We've washed our hands of it.
So, okay, so we need to hear that, because then I can get the president of the BC Voters Association, Canadian Voters, to write a letter saying, we've had this wonderful report that you're actually honoring the rights of your employees not to be vaccinated. You don't even ask them. We would like you to confirm that this is true. And if so, we applaud you, and we will be recommending that people use your shop. Yeah.
This is already what
Yeah,
I've
that's
been
good.
putting out.
Okay.
Doing it. The CIBC's gotta go away.
Yeah.
And
RBC and TD too. Yeah.
TD's really bad, but they are not forcing their staff, and I had to straighten them out a few times because
That's
I got
good.
That city's a bunch of communists.
I called it out right
Yeah.
in the bang.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't like
But
me.
you know what, guys? At this point, nobody's pushing back in a big, powerful way, okay? If this large consumer voice, and this is why every name on our 300K, and we hope to be at 1 and 2 million, quite honestly. The way it's going, I think we're going to hit 1 million quite easily. But that gives us clout, you know, as consumers, as voters, as Canadians. And that's, you know, that's a gift. And it's not that complicated, right? That's the beauty of it all. It's just people coming together saying, no more politics. I mean, why is corporate Canada playing politics anyway, right? This is not something they should be engaging in. So we will rate corporations on their position with regard to, you know, within your bylaws and how you treat your employees. Do you do this and this and this? Do you force them to become politically engaged in leftist, you know, nonsense? We can do that. And trust me, it may take a little while, but they will get it very soon, and you will see a sea change like that, because bottom line is the dollar, the almighty dollar, right? And it's going to be interesting to see. I say it'll take us a hard-hitting year and a half, and we will see a bunch of things changed for the good for all of Canada.
I have a question. Perhaps you already addressed this. What is the legalities? Like I said, maybe you've already answered this prior to me getting here. If an employer asks their employer, demands their employee as a condition of employment to get vaccinated, what is the recourse that an employee has?
So
If any,
here,
legally.
yeah, no, here's the challenge, right? Everybody's going rights, right? The Charter of Rights, but the Charter of
Yeah.
Rights applies to how the government treats you,
Right.
okay?
Right.
Private corporations, private businesses, different kettle of fish, and that's why consumer clout will affect that. However, I've been in quite a few meetings with lawyers, and I always look for creative ways. Lawyers are always pretty much part of the system. Ironically, in 2016, the BC Human Rights Tribunal decided political belief fit in with its scope of discrimination. And
Really?
they published this document. I'll send it to you.
Wow.
They published this document, cited law, and they believe that their interest in what is transpiring includes political belief. So if your political belief is the government doesn't have the right to inject me, I believe in bodily autonomy, nobody can force me to do these things, that is your belief. So we are now looking at putting class actions, because I've got a horde of pilots, nurses, long-term care facility people. I mean, the people that are begging for help is a long list right now. So again, we're working with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom on this. We're also working with some of the Vancouver lawyers that are very much in civil liberties. Ironically, like I said, it's an interesting marriage, because there is no political left and right on this. It's civil liberties, which is typically very left-wing views, but they're going, Kari, this is ridiculous what's going on.
So
So
there's no black and white answer. It's gray right now. And
no, there is a black and
Okay.
white. If you're in a private situation, your employer can do that. But
How
whether
can they do that when it's illegal in Canada to do human experiments?
Yes.
It is illegal everywhere.
Exactly.
But then,
Period.
but then they'll say driving down the road at 35 is an experiment. It's the courts, and again, even you talk about illegal, we've already covered. We know the courts are corrupt, so we've got like 3-prong approach we have to take here, right? Who would have ever thought we could be locked down Who would have ever thought that church is opening
Because
up?
everybody's a bunch of sheeple idiots.
Well,
That's the
no.
only reason why we got locked down.
Well, but that's also the reality that we have to deal with, right? And I deal in practical realities. We have a big job ahead of us because the COVID experiment showed us a lot of Canadians are willing to buy into this if enough fear is injected into their decision making, right?
Exactly.
The good news is now, though, is that people understand that maybe they've been lied to. You know, why are we having to get a third injection? You know, and what do you mean the immunity wears off? And so, nobody told me, a matter of fact, I read on the Canadian COVID information that vaccinations won't make me sick. Then why was I sick as a dog for 6 days after I got the shot?
Vaccinations are
Right.
fraud.
Okay,
From the beginning
yes.
of time.
So,
They're all fraud.
but you know, that's your opinion, and in Canada, you get
It's not
it.
an opinion, it's a fact.
Now that somebody would argue with you, and that's
Oh,
the
yeah,
joy
'cause
of
they're
Canada.
into the profits.
Right, but that's the joy of Canada, right? Is that people get to have differing opinions, right? Hopefully, what we do is shut down the government lies and the coercion and the fraud on that front, because there are rules against that. So we're gonna, you know, that's what we're trying to do. So now we have a bunch of campaigns going out. You know, did the government lie to us? Were we conned? Swine flu in 2009 is now viewed as the pandemic hoax, right? Big Pharma got paid while the other people played, right? So it's
The house of cards is falling.
well, for now, it'll come, you know, this back and forth, right? But for now, for the time as this, we have an opportunity to do things, right? So, having said that, you know, the only obstacle is how many people can we get on board and how fast can we get these things. So, you know, on our end, administratively, we're bringing in an executive director that will be the spokesperson for the Canadian Voters Association. I'm campaign chair. My job's to mobilize people because that's what I do, right? You know, making the policies, doing the battles, working with the politicians to get them to change the song that they're singing. All of those things are happening as we speak. So, yeah. Okay, more questions.
I want to ask about OSHA. Doesn't OSHA have something to, because in May, did they not change that they, if anybody's forcing vaccinations on their employees, that they will be held accountable for anything that happens to them?
That was in the
Okay,
US.
so don't we have something along those lines that
Canada's a very different animal. Okay, number one, in the States, judges are elected. Okay, big difference. Okay, here they're going to go with the standard line, unless there's enough political pushback that they know that there's going to be a problem. So I don't mind taking judges on. The problem is lawyers do, though, right? So I'm happy to be the bad guy on all of these fronts. You know, Chief Judge Kingston, we're watching you. I actually got an apology. People don't get apologies from judges. I was involved in a case where a judge just went rank on us. I made a very strong complaint, and I actually got an apology from the provincial court, which is just, I should frame it actually. Yeah.
That's rare.
It is. So, you know, there's a lot of things that are happening. I know how to get this stuff done. I know how to hold power players to account. I've done it for a lot of years. I do know that nobody moves in a position that they should because they want to. They do it because the path of greater resistance guides them, and we have to become the path of greater resistance. We have been, you know, like rocks across the river when the tide, you know, the flow can just go. We have to build a dam, you guys, and, you know, only let what we want through when we want it through, right? So be the path of greater resistance. I've said if politicians have to do my bidding because they're afraid of the result and their heart's not really in it, well, too bad. I don't need their heart. I just need their votes in the legislature going our way, right? So though, you know, we need to expose the politicians that are doing things. You have a mayor in Nanaimo. I have a letter from him from years ago where he said, Kari, the biggest problem today is overpopulation, and anybody who believes they have 2 or more children and right to the resources isn't fair. I should publish that letter, right? I do have it. Yeah. So this is when people, and I agree, there is campaigns there, and people don't always believe that, right? But when they look at letters like that, this guy is where his mind is at, right? You know, you nasty person, you gave birth to 4 children, you're a breeder, you know, and you should be, you know, wait till he finds out I had 16 grandkids, right? You know? Yeah, I still don't ask. I don't know how they all did that, but, well, I do know how they did it. It's just like I didn't expect it. Let me clarify. Thanks, Tyler. You're always there to just step right in there.
I got you back.
Yes.
So the action items are for us to go online, join up the Canadian Voters Association, the BC Voters Association.
Just go to 300K.ca.
300K.
That will put you where you need to be, okay?
And then call 50 people, invite them to the sites, and ask them, each and every one of them, to call 10.
Yep.
Okay, any other action items?
Come back to the website middle of next week if my webmaster's still alive, or if I'm still alive and is going to survive this. And then there'll be more action items on what people can do, organizing locally, putting together, you know, the town hall meetings where the Canadian Voters Association will supply the letters and the questions that will be asked. Take these, photocopy them, distribute them. The PDF of that will be on the website, I'm sure, by next week as well, okay? And I love what you're doing, and I do want those reports.
Okay, I have one more thing to just get back to what she's talking about. When people work for you, I thought that when you go in to do a job, that when you leave, you're not obligated to take any of that job with you. So if your employer puts something in you, that's taking something out of that job.
You know,
Isn't
there's all those arguments are going to be made, and like I said, I've got a team of lawyers. We're trying to figure out what the best approach is. We will do something, even if it's just a temporary injunction. So if we go the route of putting the complaint in the BC Human Rights Tribunal for political belief, like discrimination on political belief, the lawyers will then go to the Supreme Court and go, look, we have this complaint at the BC Human Rights Tribunal. We want an injunction until such time as this is heard. Okay? Hopefully we'll get that injunction. I do believe that there's enough judges that are concerned about what is transpiring too, and if you know what,
there's a momentum.
But we have to give them that support, right? And again, letters coming from us to Chief Justice Hinkson and the rest of it will send a message down that we're watching and we want to make sure justice is done here. So that's what we can do at this point.
Okay, can I just add one more quick thing? If they do end up locking us down, if you phone the bylaws, if they take away the playgrounds, you just tell them that you're a grandma that has lots of kids and you're going to the playground anyway, you're going to cut the tape off because all they're going to do to you is ask you not to do that. And they open the playgrounds.
Just declare it a political protest, right? And then, that's the political protest.
I'm just saying, if we don't keep phoning these people and doing these kinds of things to hammer them on or question them about what we're doing, we're going to get eaten by them. And I've been doing this for so long, all the way through.
But know your rights. Like political protests are in public land is perfectly legal. They have no right. That was already heard in the BC Supreme Court. So there was 2 cases with the churches, the 3 churches that were getting fined, and another guy by the name of Badrian something. And the court just said to the Crown attorneys, why are we even looking at this guy? He says, you know this isn't going to wash. And the Crown said, we agree. So his was on political protest and the right to hold them. Ironically, the big hold up on that one was, okay, well, the ticket's been issued, now how do we deal with it? Because it was moot at that point, right? So they figured that out. So political protests have already been to the Supreme Court of BC, and we have the right to do those without fighting. Every police force, and I will make sure that the Canadian Voters Association writes every police chief in every district and reminds them of that court decision, okay?
I'm a protester and I was out last night. Does that mean I can go into any of these malls?
Public land.
Outside.
Malls are not public. Sidewalks are public. Airports, ironically, you can go into any airport. There are court cases that's federal land, and you're allowed to hold political protests in airports. So if it's raining, I'm not saying where you should go, but you might as well make your point and stay dry, right?
Victoria Airport.
Ferry terminals, you know, I mean, again, you know, I'm not suggesting anything, but, you know, where you can create disruption. They're creating disruption. You guys need to create disruption. Legal disruption.
Our schools and playgrounds.
Schools are not public work, but sidewalks outside schools are. So if they require kids to be masked, protest outside, hand the kids as they're going in, even if they're 5, take your mask off, right? You know, you want to breathe, all those things. So there's all kinds of ways to do things that are creative and very, very effective.
Are you going to put these suggestions on the website for people to, like, I mean, I don't know, for myself, I might not.
If I was dreaming and being creative and wrote down all my thoughts, that would probably show up on the website.
Okay.
And along with the legal citations, okay? Because, you know, every time I confront the cops at the churches that were involved, so 2 of the churches, after I confronted the police, they never showed up again, okay? At the one in Langley, I said, by what authority are you doing this? And he looked totally blank at me. There's like 15 cops and bylaw officers. And he looked blank. He went back to his car, opened up his computer. We were waiting for the answer because I knew he didn't have it. And he called all the officers that were there with him and the bylaw officers, and they just left without a word. They just poof, gone, okay? When I showed up at the little church in Matsqui, the cop pulled right in behind me. I just get on my truck with my video camera. Please always make sure when you're doing these protests, you guys know this, to always make sure there's at least 2 video, preferably 3 video cameras happening, okay? And again, he was really nice. He said, Kari, I don't want to be here, right? And I said, I bet you don't. And you know, they didn't go in. And they haven't been back since there, right? So again, knowing where you stand, how to speak authoritative, but nicely, right? You know, one cop in Kelowna, of all places, we had just given a big round of applause because the RCMP up there had been really good to the people. Then Chris Elston, Billboard Chris, who's doing a great job informing people. Yay, Chris!
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
He was there. And somebody had reported him for having a weapon because he had he had a selfie stand, right? So we were all shutting down. We were all shutting down, and the sun was fading, and I could see these cops making a beeline for him. Well, I've done this enough to know, right? And I've been arrested before, and you recognize the look, right? So I immediately pull out my camera and I start filming them. Now, there's Chris and there's 2 other people, and I'm filming it. Well, the female officer decides to start just going on a power rage, right? Well, wrong person, you know. Step back, ma'am, step back. Well, if you have 3 people in your viewer, you know you're already back, right? She goes, I'm going to handcuff you. And I just said, been there, done that, won it. You know, like, go try to bully someone else, right? So, you know your rights. And you know what, people, like, we had a rally in Port Moody on a different issue. And the council culture group all got together and they called the mayor, and we had done what was right. We took a permit out, even if you don't have to. They called us the night before, big, and they put it all over the news, you know, permit for this rally canceled and all the rest of it, right? And
I will never be back here again.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
she doesn't like us. But see, there's one of her and how many of us, right?
She didn't like what you were saying?
So we're at this rally. So the night before the rally, I get this message, Kari, on my phone just starts like, Kari, they said they canceled the permit. What are we going to do? It's like 10, 11 o'clock on the Friday night, Saturday's rally. I said, well, I'm going to go hold a rally. And if they arrest me, all the better. Because then we're going to have great news coverage. We're going to have all these things. And of course, the best news about that was 300 or 400 people showed up at the rally. And I said to them, I said, how many of you came here today knowing you might be arrested? 3/4 of the hands went up. That made my heart happy. Canada is on the move, you guys. And I think we're all fed up with what has been happening. Enough is enough. We put up with a lot. But there are some issues, our freedom, our children, forced vaccinations, forced medical interventions. Enough is enough, and it's time to just move that line back, right?
Amen.
You know, I tell this story once, that, you know, because I've got 5 acres in Langley there, and if I wake up and I'm having my coffee and I look out and I see the farmer whose farm backs onto mine out early in the morning, because I am up early. Not that I'm an early bird, but it's just necessity. And I'm sitting there drinking my coffee and I see him surveying the fence line that divides our land, right? And I look and I see him contemplating things, and of course I'm going to be curious about what's going on. He goes away, and the next morning I'm out there and I see him moving our fence in a foot into my land. And I go, what? Of course, if I was a good Canadian, my first thought would be, oh, they must have put the fence in the wrong place, right? Because nobody would do that unless they had a right to. The next day, I see him, and now he's moving it 5 feet into my land because he's getting bolder, because I'm not saying anything. And I go, oh, well, I've been blessed with so much I can do with 6 feet less land, right? And every morning I go out and check and I look, and the next morning he's not there. And I go, okay, I can live with this, right? Because I don't want to be confrontational. Keep the peace. Remember, I'm a nice, easy to get along, peaceful Canadian. But then 3 days go by, and then I see him out there moving the fence 20 feet into the land. And now I don't say anything because I'm scared, right? And one morning I get up and I look out my window and he's looking right back at me. Like, at what point do we move that fence back to where it should be? And that's where we're at here in Canada, you guys. You are out here right now. Put the fence back. There will always be the good guys and there will always be the bad guys. That's just, you know, the differing opinions. But we have a right to our nation, and we have a right to the freedom and liberties that we have. And we have a right to put that fence back and tell them to stay on that side, and don't you dare encroach on our land.
Amen.
All right? All right. Any more questions?
Kari, do you anticipate, I know it's a little bit early, but that there will be, like, personal accountability for some of these politicians?
You know, I would love to think so, but I don't think so. They have so much immunity. Horgan brought in the COVID Measures Act, which gives immunity of liability from anybody that's involved in making decisions under the Emergency Program Act. So they covered all those bases already, right? The best accountability we can do is to boot them out of the office and fire Dr. Bonbon, right? I mean, just that was fun. You know, we need to do that, right? And we need to send a very clear message that those kinds of things will never be tolerated again. There will be accountability. If you want to make people lose their businesses, destroy families, homes, and all the rest of it, there has to be accountability.
Take away their pension.
But I don't think there will be. No.
I gotta say one thing.
For you.
I gotta say one thing.
You go to Gizmo.
Tracy, can everyone here, can you jump on your phone or when you get home, and can you give the Bird of Paradise a 5-star review?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
Diego's putting it all on the line here for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, and that stuff is really important, okay? Facebook, social media, as trivial as it is, this is the language of the people these days, okay? Please make yourselves social and big on liking, putting comments, starring other people's, you know, boost them up. Yes?
Do you have a Twitter handle?
You know what, I do. I just don't have time, but I will make time. So it's Kari RKR something, but I'll have one for the Canadian Voters Association. Yeah,
Are you getting a ferry back home tonight?
I am. So
You gotta make it a sure order after.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so
you gotta-
everybody
you
tell
gotta
me when
fly.
it's 8:15.
No, before that.
Okay.
Before that.
You have
One comment.
Okay.
I've been counting when we've been out in front of the legislature, the number of waves, honks, thumbs up, all that kind of stuff, to the number of fingers up, thumbs down, and no. It has been running 125 positive to 1 negative.
Right.
That's how much we're in a majority that we don't know we're in.
Yeah.
Right.
Very
Yeah.
well.
No, I agree.
That's not government numbers, that's real numbers.
Yeah, there will always be be one person that wants to divert the agenda and do this and that, right? Yeah. Just don't let them, right?
Oh, it's
I
so
thank
irrelevant.
them.
Yeah.
I thank them because otherwise I wouldn't even have a no.
Your vote counts. 1.
Yeah.
All right, you guys.
I got
Yes.
a question still.
Oh, I had my, well, I was given information recently about whether it's accurate or not, I'm not sure, but that the emergency was deemed over on the 30th of June.
29th.
Right, it was, yeah.
So how come we're still having children and seniors and everyone who can't have a say injected?
Okay, because
Legally,
No,
that is.
because okay, so very good question. Okay, so there is emergency program acts on the federal level and on the provincial level. The federal emergency program act was never invoked, and Health Canada comes under the federal government. So there, and they said it declared an emergency. They still view it as a. So there is some legal opportunity there, but if people are giving consent, right?
You can't give consent when there's nothing on the paper. And when the nurse doesn't know what's in it.
I agree with
Yeah,
you, but
I give consent.
I agree, but
All
and
illegal.
I agree, but
Totally
regrettably, people are just buying into it, and if they don't fight and scream,
If they
it's
give
deemed
permission, they
to
give
be
permission.
consent.
Not
So,
children. Not children.
no, I agree with you, and informed
Not-
consent.
Not seniors.
But it's
who
not
have
No.
lost
I agree.
capacity,
I agree.
not people who-
Yeah.
And
And these
also-
cases will start coming. So,
criminal.
so what's happening right now is the federal government, because there are so many serious adverse reactions now, they have created a fund that if you have a serious reaction, you can just get paid out as long as you sign your silence away. So that fund has been set up and publicized now. But you can't find anything that tells you what the criteria is for accessing that fund. So that's my job this week. Yeah.
About informed consent, the word informed means that you tell the person exactly what you're injecting them with so that they can accept or not.
Logically, we all agree. There's not one person here that's going to disagree with us, okay? With you. But until somebody holds that nurse accountable and says, you know, you did not tell me this and this and this, hopefully there will be a video recording, because otherwise it's he said versus she said. And if you had any questions at this person, then why did you allow it? So it boils down to a lot of problems. We're better just to make the government admit that there's a lot of problems with this. Ironically, I was looking at the graphs on serious effects versus non-serious effects and adverse reactions. Well, there's a definition of what only doctors can report as adverse reactions. So the mild, and they're not, and that's just the mildest. So if there's an adverse reaction that's mild on the government website, that means it has to be worse than what they say you have to report, because it has to meet certain criteria. So we're going to actually be publishing some information on this so people can better understand, when you see these statistics, how to really tear them apart and do it.
So one last question over here.
And then you gotta go.
I just
And
wanted to
then
know
we have to go.
why you decided not to put Canadian Voters Association on your brochure.
Because when we did it, we didn't have it.
Oh.
And I haven't,
New name?
huh?
Is this a new name?
The Canadian Voters Association was when did we speak in Victoria?
July
24th of July.
24th of July is when we acquired the Canadian Voters Association. So all of this movement has been done since then. Yeah. So it's been busy.
I recommend that you get some stickers and stick this on here, because I'm gonna tell you, I'm a marketing person, and 300K.ca needs nothing.
We're getting new.
to
We're getting
anybody.
new.
Well, 170,000 people don't agree with you. So, but no, it's all coming. It is coming. You give us to this end of the week. I was transferring websites this morning over to our webmaster. We have been working literally night and day, putting out fires, trying to keep people mobilized. And so there's only so much, 50 people can do in a day.
Well, if you need someone to stick some stickers on, I'll stick some damn stickers on.
No. All right.
If I'm gonna go to the trouble of delivering them and
Yeah,
trying to
I gotta
stop
run.
people, yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Kari.